Welcome, I'm Paul Coveney, the Senior Clerk at Francis Taylor Building. FTB is a leading public law set of barristers' chambers, specialising in planning, environmental, major infrastructure projects and licensing. We are also well known for our experience in areas such as compulsory purchase and compensation, rating, ecclesiastical law and religious liberties. We represent a broad range of clients from both the public and private sectors, NGOs, statutory bodies and interested parties. We are proud of our leading position in the fields in which our members specialise and of our award-winning clerking and administration teams. We are very fortunate to be located in the heart of the Temple here in London, with easy access to the courts and tribunals at which our members appear. Whilst we're physically located in London, our members appear at hearings and inquiries all over the UK and beyond. For example, Hong Kong, the Caribbean and other British overseas territories. So keep watching to find out more about us.
I really enjoy planning law because it's about so much more than just litigating about money, which is what a lot of civil litigation is about. This involves people in local communities. You go and look at a site at the beginning of the process. You might go back at the end afterwards and look at the site, and there might or might not have been change, but there are physical results to what you're doing.
So the advantage of working in a chambers with a very long-standing and well-established experience in planning is firstly that lots of the relationships with clients are already in place, and it's just about continuing to foster pre-existing relationships. But the second point is that as a junior practitioner in this building, I have a wealth of knowledge and experience to draw from. So if I ever have a question about a particular piece of advice or a particular type of case, there are people here who've done it before and will be able to help.
So the sort of clients I will typically work with will be large energy companies, transmission companies, airports. I do a lot of work with water companies and sometimes highways as well. And when you work with those sorts of clients, you get the opportunity to work with absolutely top firms of solicitors, top planners, top environmental consultants, and that's really enjoyable as well.
What we're about is crafting the environment around us. For every leisure industry building that needs planning permission, it will almost certainly also need a premises license. So it meshes together very well, and it means there is a sounding board and an exchange of expertise between those who concentrate on licensing, those who concentrate on planning, and indeed many of our members will do both.
The two things that stand out to me about environmental law and make it an interesting but also a very challenging area to work in are first, its breadth. It covers a huge range of areas, so from flooding, quite private matters of damage, to high levels of public policy at state, even international levels. The second thing is how current environment law is. I mean, it's always changing. And I think in these last couple of years, we've really seen environment law sort of come to the fore in our consciousness as lawyers.
So public law is a fascinating area to work in. It essentially regulates the relationship between citizen and state, and therefore it concerns government decisions and whether they've been taken lawfully. And as government decisions, both nationally and locally, essentially affect every area of our day-to-day life, so too does public law. So from housing to education provision to the decisions that we take in relation to the natural environment, the work is inherently varied, and therefore there's never a dull day. So in terms of typical clients in public law, it's as varied as the work, really. We can represent anyone who has an interest in the government decision in question. So we also do a lot of work for local authorities and for government bodies, including regulatory bodies. And a lot of our members are on the Attorney General's panel, which means that they can represent national governments across many areas of public law. So if I had 30 seconds to describe FTB to potential people, I would say that FTB is a leading expert in its field. And the good example I'd give of that is, as a junior, you're often working with and for other members of chambers who literally wrote the book in the area of law that you're dealing with. I'd say that practice is varied, it's challenging, and it's deeply rewarding. It will appeal, the practice areas that we do will appeal to anyone with an interest in politics and an interest in the natural environment and the decisions that we take affecting it.
What makes compulsory purchase and land valuation work interesting? If you're for an acquiring authority, which is the body that acquires the land, it puts things together, it's really about building big projects, making things happen that couldn't otherwise happen because of land ownership issues. It's about having a vision and putting a scheme together and then really selling and justifying that scheme to the landowners to try and acquire their land, or to the Secretary of State if you need to actually promote the order against objections. On the other side, if you're for a landowner or for an objector, I guess there's a kind of emotional side to it, because people, when they have their property taken away, it can really can engage kind of quite deep feelings for them. So then it's about understanding what the client's needs are, really being realistic about what you can and can't achieve.
In a barrister's chambers like FTB, there are probably 3 roles that the clerking team fulfil. The first of those is diary management. That's what the clerks are doing on a day-to-day basis. That might involve booking in hearings or what we call conferences, which are meetings with clients. The second role that they fulfil is business development for chambers as a whole. So the more senior clerks in particular will be going out and meeting clients, trying to win work for chambers as a whole. The third thing that they do is business development for individual barristers. So helping you as a barrister grow your practice. And that might be introducing you to certain clients, putting you forward for certain work, as I say, so that you can grow your practice in the way that you wish.
I've worked in a number of sets over the years, and this is probably one of the most niche sets of chambers I've worked in. And I have to say, it makes for a great working environment, because I think clients nowadays, they want specialist advice, they want specialist advocacy, and they want to know that they're coming to the chambers that is, a specialist within that area, which we are.
I am a member of the Pupillage and Tenancy Committee. I'm secretary of the committee. I've been involved for a few years now. It was something I was keen to get involved with, volunteered for, because I just think that the pupils we recruit is, such an important part of the success of chambers. So my role on the committee involves, I suppose, organising the interviews and often carrying out the paper sift of the applications that come in. We have 2 rounds of interviews for pupillage, and I have sometimes sat on first or second round. Lots of other members of chambers are involved as well. We try to get quite a broad section involved in the interview processes. Academic credentials are obviously important, but they're really not everything. I remember looking at the CVs of people, members of chambers, when I was applying for pupillage, and being horribly intimidated by everything that I saw there. But the honest truth is, we're looking for a rounded candidate. We want people with outside interests, people who can bring not just academic strength but other knowledge and interests to chambers. The culture at FTB is warm, it's collegiate, it's relatively traditional, but not in a stuffy way. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it does feel like a family. Everyone's door is always open. You can always go and speak to anyone about a problem you have, whether it be personal or professional. So it's a really supportive, warm environment.
The support you receive throughout pupillage is very strong, I guess. I mean, you get obviously your pupil supervisor throughout, who you sit with and you work with very closely. But part of the pupillage here is also that you work for a lot of members of chambers, and a lot of that is the feedback process. So there's a lot of support both from your supervisor and through everyone else in terms of what your work's like and how to improve it.
During pupillage, I did have quite a lot of exposure to the clerks. The way it works here is we have 2 clerks in particular who will be in a team who will basically be responsible for the pupils. And at the beginning of your second 6 pupillage, because we have a practicing second 6 pupillage, you'll sit down with your clerking team, and they will explain to you how everything's going to work from there on out. They'll explain about the work you'll be doing on your own, about your diary, about all those sorts of issues. And they really do work with you on a close basis and liaise with you about cases going into your diary, and want to talk about your general workflow. And so I think they often work in a pastoral way as well as in a sort of more formal managing your workflow way.
Anyone coming to these chambers to do a pupillage can expect to have 3 supervisors. They can expect to be well trained in advocacy, both oral and written. And they can also expect to be given seminars by members of chambers to make sure that they're up to speed completely in the area of law that we do. We put a lot of effort and time into our pupils. We provide them also with a mentor to ensure that they are trained to the highest standard that they can possibly be, and also to ensure that they're well supported throughout their pupillage. What makes a good FTB barrister is the ability to absorb large amounts of information and sort out what are the two key points that will win or lose a case. The ability to have sharp legal analysis and to have good interpersonal skills and good advocacy, both written and oral. In order to ensure that our pupil applications are as diverse as they possibly can be, we embark upon outreach through the Sutton Trust, through our mini pupillage process, and through the INS, in order to try and get the broadest pool of applicants that we can. Having done that, we then must ensure that the approach that we take to assessing them is scrupulously fair. And we do that through initial sifting, where we assess people through a number, not a name, and we then assess them through objective criteria through a first and second round interviewing process.
My name's Melissa Murphy. I'm a barrister here at Francis Taylor Building. We've thought quite carefully about what barriers there are for people accessing the bar generally, but our set in particular, such as financial security. We're not making assumptions about the background that people have, nor their family circumstances. Talent comes from all walks of life, and we recognise that. So one of the measures that we have instituted, for example, is the opportunity to draw down on a pupillage award. So that offers financial security the year before pupillage begins, and we think that may make a difference in terms of people's decision-making. It's an important role for a set like ours, which is serious about tackling access to the bar generally, and the diversity of our own set in particular. And I'm supported in what I do by another member of Chambers, Caroline Daly, and also by the members and staff here. We're not as diverse as we need to be, but we do have a range of members of Chambers from different socio-economic backgrounds, academic backgrounds, those who've transferred from other careers. I'd like to see a bar that better reflects the society that we're part of, and that means taking practical steps now to achieve that in the future.
The culture here, I would describe in a nutshell as genuinely one of mutual respect. That's as between members of Chambers of all different seniorities, and between members of Chambers and staff. We've also recently introduced a mentoring system here, and one of the ideas of that is to pair junior and senior people, so that very junior people, for example, can be involved in mentoring much older people like me, and vice versa. From about the age of 35 downwards, we have a completely 50-50 split of women and men members of Chambers, and for the last 5 years, I think it is, we have had a mix of an equal mix of women and men pupils coming in, from whom we've recruited.
I'm Simon Bird QC, Head of Chambers at Francis Taylor Building, and I've been a member of Chambers since 2014. And as a comparatively recent arrival, I can say from my own personal experience how welcomed and supported I felt from my very first day in Chambers. Members are keen and take the time to support one another, providing advice, encouragement and reassurance. And I can say from my very first days in Chambers that both staff and members operate very much as a team, supported and strengthened by the friendships and camaraderie which are critical to the success of any Chambers.